Hello, and welcome to Appleton Engaged. I'm your host, Timber Smith, DEI coordinator for the city of Appleton. And Appleton Engaged is a podcast that explores the many people, organizations, and resources that make our community a great place to live, work, and play. So whether you're a longtime resident or just getting to know Appleton, join us as we learn more about our community together. Hello, Appleton Engaged listeners. How are you doing this week? Yes, you're stuck with me by myself this week. Andy had some things that she had to do, but that doesn't change the fact that we have an amazing guest. And this is going to be a fantastic episode. I'm really actually very excited to talk about this particular resource because I think it's something like, I don't know, you hear about it, but I don't know if we know enough about it. And so this is going to be our opportunity to learn together. So this week's guest is Traci Edmondson. And Traci is our dementia care specialist for Outagamie and Calumet counties. How are we doing, Traci?
Good. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, Traci, let's jump in. Can you please tell us about yourself and your association with Appleton or the Fox Cities region?
Sure. My husband was transferred to Appleton. We grew up in Colorado and lived most of our life there, and he was transferred here about 20 years ago. So that's how we ended up in Appleton. It's such a great community. It was one of the best things that we ever did. My journey with being a dementia care specialist started probably about 8 years ago when my husband was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's disease. For his job, had been transferred around to different areas, but really there were so many resources here in Appleton specifically that we decided that this is where we need to, make sure that we came back to.
Awesome. Can you please tell us about the resource?
Yes. So the dementia care specialist is actually a position that was created in 2012. We actually are very, very lucky here in Wisconsin. We have a statewide dementia care plan that was started in 2012. And what it did is identify needs of people living with dementia and their caregivers. And it also piloted a program called a dementia care specialist. And so my position actually evolved from that whole study and that dementia care plan. Right now, the dementia care plan includes care in the community, trying to decrease stigma, increase the awareness, and provide community resources. Also increase education and healthcare and increase early diagnosis. We also want to address crisis response, and that's something that I had no idea was even a thing. And then also look at facility-based care for people living with dementia. I actually work for the ADRC, and the ADRC is under the Health and Human Services Department.
What does ADRC stand for?
I'm glad you asked. It's the Aging and Disability Resource Center. And we're located actually with both counties. We're located in the courthouse building.
And when you say both counties, are we talking Outagamie and Calumet?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you share a little bit more about what dementia is? And maybe even what in Alzheimer's, like.
Sure. What's the difference?
What's the difference, right? That's yeah. I think you saw it on my face because that was totally the question I was going to have. What's the difference?
Well, that's a really good question, and it's very confusing. I have a slide that says my husband was diagnosed with dementia. Thank goodness it wasn't Alzheimer's, and it's a very misunderstood term. So, dementia is actually an umbrella term that encompasses a lot of different disease processes that cause what we call neurodegeneration, or basically degeneration of the brain cells. And so there's a number of different diseases that are most common. So Alzheimer's is the number one most common disease, and it's between 50 and 70% of people who are diagnosed with some form of neurodegenerative disease have Alzheimer's. But there's also vascular dementia, so people who have had a history of stroke or history of heart disease that may have, had something we call TIAs or mini strokes that have actually caused brain damage. There's things like, for example, Robin Williams was diagnosed with Lewy body disease, and recently Bruce Willis was diagnosed with frontal temporal lobe dementia. So those are the most common ones, but there are over 100 different kinds of neurodegenerative diseases. And then the other thing is that there are things that mimic dementia. They have the same dementia-like symptoms that are reversible. And so it's really, really important if anyone has any questions, that they go to their doctor so that the doctor can screen out and make sure that they don't have some symptoms that are reversible, and that if they do have actually, it looks like they have a neurocognitive disease, that they are sent to a neurologist or someone who could really do a good evaluation and determine what exactly the disease process is. Because it makes a difference in the brain what kind of disease it is. It depends on what area of the brain is affected. And that, by whatever area of the brain is affected, that will determine what kind of behavior people have. So a lot of people assume that dementia is just memory loss, but there are diseases that don't include memory loss. But it does mean that their inability to what we call decreased cognitive function, their ability to think and process and do their daily life activities are really affected.
All right, so you had me at this reverse, like the possibility, and I'm thinking to myself, how many people probably think, okay, this is happening to me, and I'm just stuck. I'm stuck with it.
Sure.
And I'm just gonna have to live with it. And now you're saying, don't assume.
Don't assume. No.
Go talk to your doctor.
Yes, don't be afraid. And, we do, I'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute, but we do some screenings with my position so that it's almost like a blood pressure where we just can kind of see where you're at, and then that will give you a baseline. The other thing is people assume, we had an assumption as a culture that as you age, you would automatically get what we used to call old age senility. But that is not normal aging. So we laugh a lot about it, saying it's normal, not normal. Whenever you do something like, I can't think of the word, it is normal aging. You see someone that you don't recognize, you recognize their face and you don't. Right. And you don't recognize, or you can't remember their name,
right?
That's normal aging. Or you misplace your car keys and you think, oh my gosh, that's it. I'm getting dementia. No, if you find your keys in the freezer or you cannot retrace your steps, those kind of things could be alarming. I did not bring my 10 warning signs, but if you look online on the Alzheimer's Association website, there's a lot of good information, and they have the 10 warning signs that you can look for if you notice any of those things.
What we'll do is we'll make sure that we put a link in this episode's notes to those.
Great, thank you.
Hey, not a problem. So now, if what you're saying is like, once things are happening and we're kind of going down this path, right? And there's this degeneration, how does your role help? What can be done? What does assistance look like?
Yes.
Or what are initiatives or programming things that are out there that can be as a resource?
Oh man, I'm glad you asked that. So my experience, and this was in Colorado, so please, I don't want neurologists calling the ADRC to complain or anything. But basically, when my husband started having problems, we went to our primary care doctor. He did a quick screen, and my husband failed. So he sent us to a neurologist. They did, a number of different kinds of tests, and we ended up doing a really in-depth neuropsychology evaluation and, determined that he had early onset Alzheimer's disease. So when we went to the neurologist for the follow-up, we did some great chit-chatting and we're having a good time. And then he said, "Oh, by the way, you have Alzheimer's." And at that moment, the world, the floor just fell out underneath us. You could hear the glass breaking as all of our hopes and dreams were shattered. And he said, "Here's a few medications. Have a good life. Call me if you need anything." And we just walked out shattered. We're like, now what do we do? How do we negotiate this? And it was terrifying. So the really beautiful thing here in the Fox Cities is that a lot of times the neurology offices have someone to actually give you support right away. Here's some organizations to reach out to. And if people don't know where to start, the ADRC is a perfect place. That's exactly what my position is geared to do is, when people say, "We have just been diagnosed with this disease, what do we need to do?" We can say, "Okay, here's the first step. This is what you need to look at. Here are some resources." We have an amazing community partnership of people and organizations who are just there waiting and ready to support people, not only the caregiver who needs a lot of support, but the person living with dementia. And so we can look at both of those aspects and decide, what they need to do first and what programs they need to access first, and then along their journey, because it is a long, challenging journey. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I also can say that I know that you can live this journey with joy. And that's definitely the silver lining.
Do you have any idea of what does that demographic look like? And I mean that in a couple of different ways. Like, who are the people that have dementia? And how big is that population, if you have any idea about that? And I just mean that regionally, not nationally or anything, if there's any estimates or anything like that.
I actually do. So the statistics show that there are some diseases that are more likely to occur earlier on, like frontal temporal lobe dementia generally happens between ages 40 and 60. With Alzheimer's disease, it's more of a rare thing to have early onset Alzheimer's disease. It usually occurs after age 65. And as you age, your chances of developing Alzheimer's disease increases. So that's one thing. And the other thing demographically we have found is that, unfortunately, minorities tend to be affected more often. And we don't know if because the things that affect brain health are the things that maybe people don't have access to on a regular basis. So anything that's good for your heart, good nutrition, good sleep, decreased stress, all of those kind of things can, we still don't know what causes, especially Alzheimer's. We're getting closer, but we still don't know. And some things are genetic. There are genetic components to different disease processes, but sometimes, these diseases develop and there is no family history. And so that's one of those things. Now, when you ask me about demographics for Wisconsin, I have a really interesting statistic. So it has been increasing, just exponentially. One of the reasons is that we have, it's now the 7th leading cause of death. It used to be the 6th leading cause of death until COVID. But one of the reasons is because the baby boomers are aging out. So every day, 10,000 baby boomers turn 65. So they're getting, more into that over 65 population. We're doing a better job of managing heart disease and cancer. So those numbers are going down. But by the year 2035, Wisconsin is predicted to have 216,000 people living with dementia in the state. And to give you an idea, Timber, of what that looks like, it would completely fill the stadiums of Lambeau, the Bradley Center, Miller Park, and Camp Randall Stadium combined.
Wow.
I know. It's just kind of a mind-blowing visual.
Big time. Yeah, it is. Do you have, when you engage the public, are there any regular things that you have to engage the public with? Like, is there any regular events that you do, or what does it look like?
Sure. So at the ADRC, we can see them in the office. We can do home visits. But we also tell them about all the community resources, and we are so rich with community partners. For example, Fox Valley Memory Project is a huge supporting partner, and they have all kinds of wonderful programs. We have a lot of support groups. We have a lot of short-term respite programs. So that would be like a 3 to 4 hour respite program so that the person living with dementia can have an opportunity for socialization and experiencing joy, and their caregivers can have a little break and be able to kind of recharge their batteries. We actually do some community-wide programs. We have had a few, we usually have a caregiver event, a couple different caregiver events. The Outagamie Caregiver Coalition is having or will have a caregiver appreciation event. The Fox Valley Memory Project usually does a caregiver support and event to provide information and support and motivation. And then we have different things. So Parkinson's, also people can develop their, Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's are kind of like cousins. And so you can have Lewy body dementia, you can have Parkinson's, related dementia. And so the Parkinson's, there was a big, really wonderful event that they held this year for people living with Parkinson's, and they gave them urban walking poles to help with their stability. So we have all kinds of programs going on, and then we have little things going on. Do I have time to tell you about?
Oh, you sure do.
So one of the things that we have is something called memory cafes or Spark programs. And what those are programs where a person living with dementia and their caregiver can go and be in a place, and there's usually a program presented to entertain them. There's a little bit of opportunity to network with other families who have dementia, so that's a supportive thing. And just being in a place where they don't feel stigmatized. Everybody is in the same boat, and they don't feel like people are treating them differently. So we actually had a really fun memory cafe in September at the Thompson Center, the Thompson Senior Center on Lord. So we called it Home on the Range. So when you come into the Thompson Center, you take the elevator up, and when the elevator opened, there was a horse standing in the lobby, a live horse.
Wait, how'd you make? We'll talk after, because I'm curious. I've got a question.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we had a cowboy singer who sang, country songs. Everybody got bandanas. We decorated boot and Longhorn-shaped cookies. We did cowboy trivia. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. And a lot of our memory cafes are like that. So we actually have memory cafes in this in this area, the Fox Cities area, almost every day of the month. So people can pick and choose what they want to do. We actually have a memory screening program that we just started. It's a partnership between the ADRC and the Thompson Senior Center. We're going to be screening people the first Friday of every month there, and you can call the Thompson Center to find out what times and make a little reservation. We have a Dementia Challenges class that will be an ongoing thing at the ADRC. And then next year, we're going to be having our second grief workshop. Timber, what I noticed as a caregiver is that dementia is a journey of grief from diagnosis all the way through every loss. And so we wanted to address that for caregivers. So that's coming up next year.
I want to ask a quick question about you've mentioned multiple times caregivers. And that seems like that's such an important part of this. What's there for caregivers? Like, what can you share?
Yes. So I think the biggest thing that we can help caregivers with is understanding the disease process, because the brain does not function like so the interactions that are predictable don't happen because people don't process their reality the way they did. Their senses are altered because of the disease. So we can give them tips and tools and tricks to understand those behaviors. We also have lots of resources to help support them in that journey, whether it's respite. Sometimes they qualify for funding for some of that respite. It could be just giving them resources for support, like maybe helping with their households or helping them get the snow removed or their lawn mowed or some different things like that. So, yeah, there's lots of different opportunities.
Can you please share a story that you might have that'll help the Appleton Engage listeners better understand the resource and also or the power of the resource and how it has helped others?
We just recently did our very first grief workshop, and we've also been doing the Dementia Challenges class. And basically that's not just a great overview, but it gets into the meat of why people have what we call challenging behaviors. And I had one person in particular I'm thinking about, actually maybe about 3 of them, and they went through both of these classes. And they said, number one, we had no idea how to manage these things day to day, and it's so stressful. This has helped. And the other thing is that they said we didn't even realize we were grieving. So a lot of the stresses and the outbursts that you have as a caregiver, because you're only human and you don't understand and you're handling everything. You're the CEO of everything. And you're trying to help this poor person that is trying to negotiate with a brain disease. And it's just very challenging. So having them be able to say, you made my life, easier and better is so rewarding. And that's why I do what I do.
Is there anything the community can do to be helpful? Is there volunteer opportunities? Are there donations needed? How can our community help?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that. One of the things that we are going to be working on next year is increasing the awareness of improving brain health, because that's going to help everyone in the long term. The other thing is just increasing the awareness of what dementia is and how you can support your friends and neighbors. There's kind of a funny story about someone being diagnosed with a disease that people know about, and all of a sudden everybody's bringing them casseroles, but then somebody's diagnosed with dementia and people don't know what to do. But they just need to ask their friends and neighbors what they need and, try to support them in that journey. And then if we can help caregivers and people living with dementia negotiate just their daily lives and be patient. If you see someone struggling in the grocery store, maybe you can just, ask them if they can help. Who knows if they have dementia or not? But, I guess a kinder, gentler world will help everyone.
Facts. That's just facts. who can people contact if they need to learn more or if they need assistance or maybe they want to get involved?
Absolutely. And we have some really exciting volunteer opportunities coming up. So, with memory cafes, with some brand new respite programs, and special events. So, people can always call the ADRC. They can call, so Outagamie, the Outagamie office is 920-832-5178. If they're brand new to dementia, that's a great start. I'm going to give you my direct line. It is 920-832-2038, or you can email me at Traci, Traci, .Edmondson, EDMONDSON, at Outagamie.org.
Was there anything that we didn't ask that you would like to share at this time?
Well, Timber, I actually could go on for another 2 hours, but I will wrap it up.
All right. Well, then we're going to move into shout out time.
Okay. I would like to make a shout out to all of my community partners. We especially have something called a Dementia Awareness Work Group that has a number of partners that come together to make sure we're addressing the needs in the Fox Cities area. I also want to shout out to the Outagamie Sheriff's Department, the Calumet County Sheriff's Department, the Appleton Police Department, who is also dementia capable and has a wonderful program for people living with dementia. We are just extremely lucky in this area. So I am so glad that I was able to share this today.
I'm so glad you were able to share it because this is important. And this is something where if more people know that this resource exists, they probably, if they have that loved one, like this can be a true difference maker for them and how they're able to continue to engage our community and be part of our community.
Oh my gosh. People a lot of times feel like they are alone and they have to just tough it out and do it themselves. And it's really an impossible journey without a web of support. And so we want to start that web of support for people.
Awesome. All right. At this time, we're going to start wrapping up this episode. Just want to take a moment and say thank you to the Appleton Engaged listeners. We appreciate you. We are a work in progress. Please let us know how we're doing. Reach out to us. Send us an email for a couple of reasons. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know how we can improve. But also, if you would like to be a guest or if you would like to recommend a guest, please reach out to us at diversity@appleton.org. Once again, that is diversity@appleton.org. And Appleton Engaged listeners, I got one more request, and that has to do with please take the time while you're listening to press the subscribe button. Press the subscribe button and leave us a review. What that does is it helps to improve our analytics, and the better our analytics are, the more people get to learn about Appleton Engaged. We think we have something pretty special here, what has become an amazing resource for our community. And we think it would be super awesome if more people in Appleton and the surrounding Fox Cities region were able to learn about Appleton Engaged. So thank you for listening. And until next time, stay thoughtful, stay curious, and stay engaged.